Thymesia is a third-person Souls-like ARPG that takes you back in time to the age of the bubonic plague. With dynamic controls and a pace that demands quick reflexes, this is a perfect entry Souls-like experience for those who want to get accustomed to what a Souls game is like before committing to the grind. Thymesia's perfect combat balance has its intensive battles that keep the player on their toes and on edge, but all is not paradise in Hermes. With certain parts of the story that seemed too bland, areas that felt generic, and the added addition of bugs riddling the end of the game, including but not limited to complete game crashes, freezes, and the screen going black during gameplay to the point of where I couldn't even finish the final boss. Corvus has a story to tell, and whether or not you decide to take on just the main story or the entire lore set, there's something teeming on the edge of epiphany. What's going on, you guys? It's your Huggable Hipster here, and welcome to my review of Thymesia. Now, like I stated in the beginning, there was a bug that was preventing me from finishing the game, but I am credible with this review because I played literally through the entire thing. If I can, and if there aren't bugs that will prevent me from doing so, I would love to be able to finish the other bosses, because there are 8 bosses in total that you can finish during the game, but only 4 are required to complete the main story. Entering into Thymesia, I wasn't really sure what to expect. A copycat of Dark Souls, Bloodborne, a very try-hard game with little substance, or maybe something that looked beautiful but played poorly. There was a lot happening with this game that I loved, but also a lot that I really was not a fan of. And when it comes to Dark Souls, it's very hard to capture that same ambiance and same feeling that Dark Souls games have, because when it comes to encapsulating how the bosses and the mechanics and the whole balancing act of that game works, it's quite tough. But this game actually does boss battles and combat quite well, and it's very similar to what the first game of Dark Souls is like and Bloodborne. In Thymesia, it's a delicate and very true to Souls-like balance is happening, where you have the bosses and typical enemy sets and everything like that, of where it is difficult, but it can be conquered still. And I love how this was all very effortlessly carried out, because dynamics in combat are very difficult to pull off to be able to replicate another type of game that is very much iconic in the community. Everything else seemed to be taken out of the book of Bloodborne, because when I'm looking at the story and when I'm looking at how strikingly similar they are, it's like, oh, okay, that's very, very similar to Bloodborne, except we're dealing with the bubonic plague in this game. The story, while having some substance, it could have done a lot more with how it was brought to the player, with adding more NPCs for variants. Like there were a few here and there that you could talk to, but really it was nothing really substantial in terms of having a variance of NPCs to discuss stuff with. Now, the way that Thymesia's story is different from Bloodborne's, the main way, is that it puts its cards all out on the table. You don't have to read several inconspicuous notes and you don't know what's happening at the very start of the game, because when you wake up in Bloodborne, you are there on basically a gurney wondering what has happened to your life. The areas are fun to look at, but minimally done in terms of what they can offer the player. The only area I felt was unique in terms of originality was the Royal Garden, which is where we face off against the Hang Queen, aka a giant bat. I felt at times that I was just going to an area for the boss and some of the notes. They didn't hold me the same way Dark Souls or Bloodborne do. Even when we get into a boss fight, I didn't even realize there was dialogue until I just so happened to look down at the bottom of the screen. I feel like having the voice actors do something besides a grunt or miff would add a lot more intensity to the bosses, the NPCs, and especially Corvus. The main thing about this game that had me in awe, besides the fact that you can pause the game, which was amazing, was the combat. The game's combat system is so immersive and unique in how you could fight and utilize regular weapons and plague weapons. Combat is the best part of this game, besides the bosses and the plague weapons and how they vary. As a side note, leveling up is simple and to the point in this game. You get very far with leveling up only a few times. Now, depending on what your playstyle is, you can parry, deflect, dodge, or run like a bat out of hell. So let's get into probably the big chunk, the second big chunk of this review is the bugs. I feel very disappointed in how the bugs were by the ending of the game. I didn't experience any bugs basically until I got to the final chapter. And it was such a disappointment because the bugs towards the end of Thymesia had to have been some of the worst I have ever experienced in any indie horror game. And let's just put this out there. It is somewhat of a horror game. Okay, I know it's classified as an ARPG, but it is technically also a horror game. From the crashes to the characters gliding and moving on their own to basically the game updating and then showing me a black screen when I got back into the game. It would only show me my stats, my health bar, and like the little peripheral stuff. It wouldn't show me any of the gameplay. So when I finally managed to move into where the boss arena was, where you fight Corvus, where you're taking on yourself, I will speak on that in a moment. I literally, you can only see the cutscene introducing Corvus, but then after that, once you get ready to fight him, as you guys are seeing right now, you then just get stuck in this loop of a black screen and only seeing your peripherals like your health and your weapons, and that's it. So it's very disappointing. I'm really upset about it because this game is excellent and I wish I could have gotten to the ending, because every time that I would try to load up the game from that point on after the update I got, it would either not load up or it would just show me that black screen after I tried putting in the disc, taking out the disc, back and forth. It was just complete nonsense. So buyer beware on that front. If you have an update, maybe just decline the update if possible. I mean, I know that I'm not the only one experiencing bugs with this game. I know a lot of people, the majority, have not experienced bugs, and I'm sad that I had to be in that like small minority of people who had to experience bugs, because other than the bugs, it is an enjoyable game. Although I do have to say, I got to experience the Corvus battle when I first went in before the update. That boss battle is so fast paced. It was wonderful. It reminded me a little bit of Father Gascoigne from Bloodborne. It was very fast paced, very well done. He uses all of our own attacks against us, so I thought that was really interesting. Very philosophical and psychological. I might do a psychologically gaming on that character. But yeah, it's a shame because, while I have issues with the game, it was an enjoyable experience. Guys, that was it for my review on Thymesia. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell down below. I make videos every day here on YouTube. But you guys, may you find your worth in the waking world, stay casually nerdy, and I will see you all in the next video. See you guys.